everybody to this. Well, we're excited for this webinar. I got to tell you, it's an exciting time for us, and today we're launching our brand new market, and it sure appears that everybody's pretty excited to jump on here and learn what the new market is. And I know a lot of you have been asking for some time now, when are you going to be in Texas? And we've just had a ton of inquiries for Texas, and it's official. Here we are. We're in Texas, and specifically we're in the Houston market to be exact. And really about the turnout today and the people jumping on the line as we speak, it sure shows how much interest there is from our investors. So, well, I got to tell you, I'm really impressed. I can't tell you how positive we feel about this. You know, as real estate investors, we look for a number of things. Of course, we look for population growth, we look for job growth, we look for affordability. You know, we look for positive cash flow. We look for stable fundamentals like stable governments, landlord laws. We want to participate in a climate where it's business friendly. And of course, you know, Houston passes all these tests. And I think that through the course of this presentation today, I think you're going to be convinced yourself that Houston's probably a good market for you maybe to take a look at with us. We've been actually watching this market for a number of years now, and we feel that the time is right now to step into specifically the Houston market. And we've spent a lot of time over the last number of months really building up our team. And I think we got a real all-star lineup here that's going to help us with our investors and be able to hopefully see some success for you in this market. We got a really jam-packed session here today. And so I'm going to ask you for your patience as we move through this, because we're introducing a brand new market. We've got a lot of information to share, and so I'm going to get through it just as quick as I can, and we'll get through there pretty quick. So stay with me as we move through this. Now, a lot of you may go, Investar USA. I thought it was Arizona Investar. And what we've done is we've actually gone through a brand change. Now, Arizona Investar still exists. It's still an active, viable company in the state of Arizona. But because we're moving into other states now, and specifically we're moving into Texas, and we rebranded. So our new name, and we're going to be launching it here right now with you, it's Investar USA Turnkey Real Estate Investments. And I hope you like the logo. You'll see some similarities between that logo and, of course, the Arizona Investar logo. But because we're actually active in more states than just Arizona, we just can't say Arizona Investar when we're participating in Texas. So we do have a Texas Investar logo. We're going to be launching for Texas, but globally across all of the U.S., it's going to be Investar USA, and then of course our sub-brands Arizona Investar and Texas Investar. We've got a big agenda for you today, and you can see by looking at the screen here, we're going to cover lots of topics today, and I'm not going to take the time to read everything that's on the screen here that you can see, because we're actually going to go through that in kind of a microscopic way. To make sure you got a full grasp on what we're talking about. We're going to cover everything here easy for you, so you have a pretty good overview as to what we're doing. Texas is big. Texas is actually huge. And it is really, it's 268,601 square miles to be exact. It's the second largest state by area, and the second largest state by population, only to California. It's a huge landmass. It's 773 miles wide by 790 miles in length, and just for information purposes for you, it's Austin is actually the state capital, and there's basically four main areas that cover off the main population centers of Texas, and of course that's Dallas up to the north, Austin to the northwest, Houston, which we're going to talk a lot about today, and then, of course, San Antonio to the south. And 80% of the population actually resides in these four cities. Texas population is big. Right now, it's about 26 million as we sit here today. And by 2030, it's projected to be at 40 million people. And, of course, that's just huge population growth. So, again, as real estate investors, do we want to participate in a market that's growing? Absolutely we do, right? Because it's going to put the pressure on new construction. New construction is going to cause the effect of appreciation, which we call accelerated appreciation in real strong markets. So it's going to see some tremendous growth, and it's probably going to lead the nation in population growth. So I'm sure you real estate investors out there are going, geez, that's great news. The Dallas-Fort Worth airport is absolutely massive. It's actually, if you encompass it, its land mass, it's actually larger than Manhattan. It's the third largest airport in the world in terms of aircraft movement. It covers just about 27 square miles. It's got 155 gates. It has 305 direct jobs that are related, 305,000 direct jobs that are related to the airport. Payroll of approximately $7.6 billion, and it has approximately 158,000 passengers per day. And every major city in the continental United States can be reached from this airport within 4 hours. So it's just a major hub. Now, of course, one of the main cities in Texas, of course, is San Antonio. Today, San Antonio on the new Braunfels is home to just over 1.7 million people and has an international airport and an affordable cost of living that I think it continually attracts new business there. Unemployment rate is about 3.6%, so well below the national average. Its largest employer there is a Fortune 500 company by the name of H-E-B Grocery. And I think there's about 12 Fortune 500 companies that call San Antonio home, and it's just it's a great city. If you've never visited San Antonio and you're in the area, for sure stop in, and it's just a beautiful city. It's got a great downtown core. Houston, we'll talk a little bit about Houston now. Well, Houston is large. In fact, it's the fourth largest city in the United States, right behind New York, LA, and Chicago. Population of Houston itself is about 2.1 million people, and the MSA, so the metropolitan statistic area, is approximately 6 million people. So it's a very large landmass, but there's just a ton of people there, and of course, as real estate investors, we like that. There's lots of movement in the area. The Houston MSA landmass is approximately 10,000 square miles. So you've heard us reference that to Phoenix, where the Phoenix Valley is 8,000 square miles. This is a 10,000 square mile radius that we work in here. You know how sometimes I say you need to kind of see where the puck is going, or you need to really understand the growth patterns and population shifts to be a wise real estate investor. Here is a great indication of where the puck is going. Well-respected economists, the ones who predict growth patterns, and the ones our organization pays very close attention to, predict that the city of Houston is expected to lead not only the state of Texas, but the entire nation in population and employment between the years 2013 and 2040. So investors out there, let me say this again. The city of Houston is expected to lead not only the state of Texas, but the entire nation in population and employment growth between 2013 and 2014. So that's huge news. It's a little clue for you investors out there that there's something big here that's happening or is about to happen in Houston. You know, this theory is also supported by the Greater Houston Partnership Report, which is a guiding document for the city of Houston itself. So when we see that type of movement, when we see that type of population shift, it means a lot to us as real estate investors. Jobs. Well, this is how strong Houston's job market is. In 2012, 2012 marked the third consecutive year in which Houston led the state in job growth. The Houston region created almost 90,000 jobs in 2012. That's last year alone. Now remember this, in the recovery zone of the recession. This is in the recovery zone of the recession. It created 95,000 new jobs. That's phenomenal. Houston, with 23.7% of the state's population, accounted for 31.8% of the state's job growth last year. So just a very active, growing state and city. Now, Fortune 500 companies. The Lone Star State, and that's what Texas is commonly referred to as the Lone Star State, ranks number 2, just behind California, with 52 Fortune 500 companies in the state. Now, 25 of those are located in the Houston area. We'll talk about that in a bit. And there's a locally owned energy giant that maybe you've heard of before. It's called ConocoPhillips. I'm sure you have. It's ranked number 4 overall for the second year in a row, claiming $237.2 billion in revenue. So lots of Fortune 500 companies in the state of Texas, and a lot right in the Houston area. Now we've got no state income tax in the state of Texas. And according to the Tax Foundation, Texas state and local tax burdens are among the lowest in the nation. So there is no tax on income in the state of Texas. Now there are 7 states that do not impose an income tax, and of course Texas is one of them. This is how proactive the state of Texas really is, guys, and there's no corporate or personal income tax. It is really no wonder why so many corporations have set up shop right in Texas. So where do their infrastructure dollars come from? You may wonder, if there's no tax, well then where does the money come from? And really where it comes from their property and their sales tax. And the sales tax right now, I believe, is about 6.25%. And so it's a good thing not to have the income tax. It drives lots of people there, and it drives lots of businesses to locate there. And just a ton of people have been coming out of the western U.S. states, specifically California, into Texas, and a lot of businesses set up shop there. And when businesses set up shop, what does that create? That creates jobs, right? And what do people that have jobs need? They need housing. And what business are we in? We're in the business of providing housing. And here's a fun fact there. 7-Eleven is the world's, of course, as you guys know, it's probably the world's largest operator of convenience stores. It actually was started in 1927 in Dallas. And an employee of the Southland Ice Company, a guy by the name of John Green, he started actually selling milk and eggs and bread from a rundown storefront that the company had in one of their ice houses. And so that's just a little bit of a tidbit of information there for you. Texas is the largest exporter of goods in the U.S. It's very, very active. It currently grosses over $100 billion a year in trade with other nations. The ship channel at the Port of Houston is the largest in the U.S. in international commerce and the 6th largest port in the world. Air Cargo World rated Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport as the best air cargo airport in the world, and just a ton of exports get taken out of the ports in Houston. Just a very, very active port, and of course the airports are busy in Texas as well. So why is everyone moving to Texas? What is going on in Texas? Why is everybody moving there? Well, I guess the first thing is jobs. You know, companies are expanding and moving in California, and big contributors to this. With I think about 2 million Californians have left California in the last 10 years, and quite a few of them actually have moved into Texas. California corps are relocating to Texas in mass quantities. And actually in March, Apple, of course we all know the big company Apple, it actually began in California. In March it announced it was building a $304 million campus in Austin, and they plan to hire about 3,600 people. So just lots of activity, lots of people moving there. I think the other thing is that land and office space is available for business to locate to and on. And Houston is ranked #1 according to Site Selection Network, which is a company that provides new location services to large corporations. Texas also has a young, educated, employable workforce, fantastic education facilities, and of course no income tax, and it's a business-friendly climate. And yes, they do have some fantastic lifestyle options. And of course, when we're looking at lifestyle options, one of the things we're looking at is shopping, and it just has a ton of shopping centers that are located throughout Texas, and it's a big retail powerhouse. Music is huge in Texas, and there's lots of live music places to go all throughout Texas. It doesn't matter whether you're in Dallas or you're in Austin or you're in Houston. There's just music is a big thing there, and there's just lots of small, really kind of boutique, bluesy type clubs and things like that in and around Houston, and so it really attracts music lovers. There's lots of major attractions. San Antonio has the largest SeaWorld in the world, and of course that's always a good thing, especially when you have the family with you, and to see a nice good SeaWorld. It's always good to go to. And of course Texas is known for its sports. It's got 10 professional teams covering pretty much all the different sports you can think of. So there's no shortage of entertainment, sporting events, shopping, great restaurants, food, and things like that. So it's just a fantastic place to visit. And of course, the Houston art scene is large. Houston has the second most theater seats actually in the country. Now, Houston was voted #1 for city, the #1 city for job creation, and just a couple reasons why that is. The first thing is it's home to lots of major, of course, Fortune 500 companies. It's also home to the Texas Medical Center, which is the largest medical center in the world. In the last 10 years, Texas added 732,000 net jobs, so that's net jobs, and that's the largest growth of any U.S. state. Nearly half of all new jobs since 2009 were created in Texas. What an amazing stat that is. Nearly half of all new jobs since 2009 in all of the U.S. were created in Texas. And in the list of the best cities, in the Forbes best cities list for young professionals, Houston, Dallas, and Austin, and that's called the Texaplex. So Houston, Dallas, Austin. If you look at it, it kind of forms a triangle. It's known as the Texaplex or Texaplex. Took 3 of the top awards, and so that's pretty phenomenal. Now, if also this is an interesting stat. If Texas were a country, it would have the 11th largest economy in the world. Its annual economic output is over $1 trillion, and that number seems to be climbing by the year. So yes, there's tons of job creation centers in Houston. Now, when we look at Houston, Texas, and we look at we call it the MSA of Houston, and basically what it is there's, of course, Houston, which is in what's called Harris County, and you can see that on your screen there. You can see where Harris County is. But there's actually 10 counties that make up the Houston MSA. So when we're real estate investors, are we buying, we just say we're buying in Houston, right? So we're in Houston. If you're buying right in Houston property, you'd be buying in Harris County. But we're going to be fairly active out in Montgomery, out in Austin, a little bit down in Fort Bend, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the zip codes. But it's a very, very big landmass, but I want you to remember that there's a number of counties that make up the MSA of the Houston area. Now, Houston's economy, the Houston economy moved from the recovery phase in November of 2011 is when it started to move in the recovery phase. And when the local job market regained all the jobs lost in the recession and began building an even larger employment base that has now reached roughly 2.8 million workers, and that's actually double the job base from 1982. So just a phenomenal growth again in the job side of things. Jobs, of course, are the principal driver of demand for all goods and services. Jobs create households, and household growth is the demand for additional housing for both purchase and, of course, for rental. More than $10 billion in development projects are planned in the future. So again, do we like that as real estate investors? Absolutely we do. We know there's going to be money pouring into there. And of course, as real estate investors, we like that because it means that these people are going to need a place to live. The Panama Canal, when the $5.25 billion project is complete, and of course that's going through a major refit right now, when that's complete in 3 years, this historic passageway connecting the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea will be able to accommodate much larger ships. Now, for the Port of Houston, this bigger trading lane will allow some larger ships sailing from Asia to deliver their containers to the Port of Houston instead of the West Coast ports. So that's huge for the Houston area. It's going to be huge for the Port of Houston, and it's going to drive that much more product to move through the Houston area. And then, of course, we have the completion in 2015 of the ports on the East Coast and the Gulf Coast. So again, it's just going to drive more cargo shipments to flow through Houston. So that's a good thing. Now, as far as the airport goes, the Houston airport system set a record for international passenger traffic in 2012, handling about 8.76 million international travelers, and that's an increase of 1.5% from the 8.64 million in 2011. Now, pending government approval, it will allow for direct flights to Beijing, and this should occur sometime in mid-2013. And Southwest Airlines is investing $100 million at the Houston Hobby Airport and plans to begin service to Mexico and the Caribbean starting in 2015. And currently, 1 in 6 passengers flying out of Houston is traveling internationally. So Houston's just got a great international airport there, and it's a main connector hub as well. Houston's taxi service is the 3rd largest fleet of taxis in the U.S. That downtown core, if you've been to Houston, the downtown core is fairly congested. So an easy way to move around, of course, is by taxis to and from maybe office meetings and things like that. So it's got a big transportation system, huge taxi network. Houston itself is home to 29 of the Fortune 500 companies. So when we talk about investing in vibrant cities, cities where there's lots of economic activity, I know I've been kind of harping on that through this webinar, it's something to say when your city that you're investing in is home to 29 of the Fortune 500 companies. And when you see companies like this that have done just a ton of research and analysis and due diligence as far as where should they set up their home office, especially big companies like that, you know they don't spare any expense when they're trying to figure out where to locate to. And I think that speaks well for Houston. Houston, Texas Medical Center is the largest medical center in the world. 5 million patients visit each year. It's 20 million square feet. Has over 50,000 employees that work at the facility, and it's actually the #1 cancer treatment center in all of the U.S. So it's a major employer, and great to have that cancer facility there right in Houston. Houston business is strong and vibrant. It's 16 fastest growing Fortune 500 companies are right in Houston, and again, it bodes well for the Houston market and bodes well for, of course, our investors. Houston is known as the energy capital of the world. Now, of course, you from Canada, specifically up in the Calgary area, you're going to be going, geez, I thought Alberta was that. And it's actually Houston. I'm sorry to say, but I think Calgary and, of course, Alberta in general is a big hub of oil and gas activity, of course, with the oil sands there, and I think that's going to be huge, and we sure hope that Keystone Pipeline gets approved as well, because we're going to like that down in Houston. Now, the energy sector, it has about over 5,000 energy-related firms. Not all oil, some is green energy. 32% of the city's electricity is purchased from wind energy, making Houston the #1 municipal purchaser of green power in the nation. So just lots of things going on in the energy sector. From an education perspective, lots to talk about from an education perspective. There's over 60 colleges and universities in the Houston area. And we see a lot of course, people graduating out of high school and getting into university, or people going from college to university. They're looking closely at Houston because of what all of the education facilities that they have there. But it's not just the education facilities, because a lot of those education facilities, they're providing employment centers right in the Houston MSA. So not only could they go there and get educated there, they could go right in and get right into a job placement, and there's just a ton of great schools right in the Houston area. 360,000 students enroll there on an annual basis. Most will stay in Houston, and it's actually the #1 best city for college grads, and so that's a pretty interesting statistic there. Let's talk a little bit about Houston's affordability and what's happening on that side, because of course, as real estate investors, we need to be in affordable housing price brackets. And so from an affordability perspective, living costs are 12% below the national average, and housing costs are 26% below the national average. The average annual wage adjusted for cost of living in 2012, and you can see what that is here in Houston, at $75,256. So a lot of that has to play off of your affordability is based on how much is your household income versus what is the average price of a property. You can see that from an affordability perspective, we're doing very well in the Houston market in relation to all other cities in the U.S. And so we've got some big average household incomes, but you know what? We're not seeing the big price tickets for houses. So typically when you see big income, you see big prices of houses. So if you look at centers like Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, Vancouver, Toronto, even Calgary, you see those bigger price of these houses. We don't see that in Houston, and that's why we like that as such a fantastic real estate investor market. Just a few more reasons why your tenants are happy in Houston. First of all, I want to tell you that from a rental perspective versus home ownership, renters have never been in a bigger portion of the overall population, so again, speaks well for real estate investors. So right now in the Houston market, I believe we're at about 65.7% as a home ownership ratio, and typically it'd be in the mid-70s. So you can see it's a little bit lower than it typically would be, and again, speaks well for investors. Of course, weather is typically pretty good in the Houston market. You can pretty much golf year-round. There's lots of performing arts districts and theater districts. it has a huge amount of parkland. So if you've been to Houston, or if you've been to the airport because you're maybe flying to Costa Rica or to maybe the Mayan Riviera or something like that, and you're kind of flying through Houston, if you look down, you'll see there's just a ton of green space. And of course, timber was a big part of its economic activity years ago. And it's the third largest pleasure for Boat Basin. And Houston is named one of the best restaurant cities in the U.S. And there's just a lot of great restaurants there. So from a tenant's perspective, not only can they get a good job, but of course the lifestyle options are fantastic. Now I'm gonna dig into some Houston real estate stats. So I'm just going to ask you to bear with me, maybe dig in here and maybe do a little exercises while we're going through this, just to kind of stay with me. But we're going to go through some stats here, and I'm going to explain some things that are going on in the Houston real estate market from a statistical perspective. Now, as far as Houston goes, it's a lot different than what we saw take place in Phoenix, or take place in Las Vegas, in Nevada, and California, and Florida. Now, the fundamentals were different. So the other markets crashed because of primarily driven from a financial crisis. That a lot of it was spurned by the subprime mortgage crisis. So there was way too many people that took advantage of what was called the subprime mortgage, and they took advantage of that. And of course, they got themselves into some hot water when prices started to drop because they were way over leveraged. They paid too much for the properties, and quite frankly, they bought the properties at the wrong time of the cycle, and they used the wrong type of leverage. And now when we look at Houston, it didn't have those same dynamics take place, and you're going to see in a couple of slides exactly what I mean by that. So overall, Houston didn't see the big boom-bust cycle as far as real estate values go. And the reason why they didn't see that is because the Texas state passed a law where it outlawed the high leveraged mortgages. And so therefore, people couldn't participate in these 100% financing mortgages. And so therefore, a lot of people couldn't buy the houses, therefore it didn't run up the prices, and therefore it didn't have the big crash. Now, it's not to say it was immune from the global financial crisis, because it wasn't. And you'll see that prices did drop down in the Houston market, but that's where the opportunity is, because we're going to be able to catch that on the upside, no different than what our investors did in Phoenix. And the other thing is because it's been so stable, we're seeing some nice cash-on-cash returns that are dependable and are also sustainable, which is extremely important. So why do we think Houston's the right choice for our investors today? Well, I think there's a lot of reasons and more reasons than I think could fit on this screen. But I think first and foremost is that today we can buy properties at below market prices with our acquisition system. It's the same acquisition system we had in Phoenix. You know, we're not buying off the MLS, we're not paying retail price, and we're buying trustee foreclosures. And of course, we're buying in a discounted market. There's a large number of houses available for the same reason that we saw in Phoenix. It's just not to the same magnitude. The interest rates are at all-time lows. So whether you're pulling a HELOC from your existing residence or you're taking advantage of the low U.S. interest rates, it's a fantastic time to invest in real estate because interest rates are low and properties are at an all-time low. And with a good turnkey system, you don't have any headaches, right? You don't have to worry about those tenant calls at 2 o'clock in the morning saying that their furnace doesn't work. The number of people wanting to rent has increased dramatically. Of course, America is kind of turning into more of a rental type of country because of people that have got foreclosed on. And people are a little bit gun shy now about getting back into home ownership, and a lot of people can't get into home ownership because their credit's been touched. The rental rates are rising at a pretty good clip, and so we're going to see some nice rental income rates in the Houston market. And cash flow and equity capture are the highest numbers that we've seen in a long time. So specifically, where are we buying our properties? And this is a really important slide here because you can't just buy anywhere in the Houston MSA. So on the map here, you can see this is the Houston MSA, and of course, the Houston and Harris County is in this area through here. Where we're mainly focusing our efforts for our acquisitions with our investors, we're going to primarily focus on the west side of the 59. So this is north, you got south here, east is here, and of course west is here. And we're mainly focusing in on this west side over here. Now, of course, we have a proprietary acquisition system that pinpoints and tells us exactly what zip codes to buy into. based on all the analytics that we ran that goes into consideration, takes into consideration current prices, rental rates, age of properties, close proximity to transportation, good quality schools, employment centers, all these things. But to give you in a nutshell, it's going to be on the west side, a little bit on the north. Downtown's just too expensive. We're not big fans of the east side, primarily because of the downward pressure that's played on prices. You're not going to see the same level of appreciation here that you'd see on the west side, and really where desirability is. Now, when I say that, you just can't buy anywhere on the west side. There's very strategic locations you should buy into as a real estate investor. And so my point to get across to you on this webinar is to tell you that we're going to be focusing in on very, very strategic areas, specifically on the west side. Now, when we look at the jobs that have been created, and we take a look at what the employment numbers look like in Houston, and the Houston MSA is called the Houston Sugarland Baytown area. And when we look at that and versus other cities that are in the state of Texas, you can see Houston's #1. And so Houston, even though it's not as big as, say, Dallas is, we're seeing some bigger growth from a job creation perspective. And you can see that the changes just from 2011 to 2012 is 3.2%, and Dallas is 2.7%. And so, but it's a big number. We like it. We anticipate that number is going to continue, and it's going to be a leader for job creation for the state of Texas. So we figure that Houston is going to be a leader in the state. Current and projected values of Houston MSA gross product. Basically, the takeaway from this slide, guys, that I want to show you is the amount of production that's going to take place and what's projected in the future. So when we look to the future for Houston for production, do we anticipate the output to continue? Yeah, we do. And you can see based on mining, you can see where it was in 2012, and you can see where it's expected to be in 2017. And of course, that's a huge driver for the economic activity. When we take a look at the service sector, again, we see that it was 84.2 billion in 2012. We anticipate it to be about 107 billion in 2017, and it goes along the line whether you're talking manufacturing, trade, government, construction, the information sector. We anticipate it all to be up in 2017. Now, we talk about new residential building permits, and we take a look at what the difference is between 2011 and 2012. We can see there's a big change in Houston at 38.9, and actually, again, it leads the state for building permit changes between 2011 and 2012. New building residential building permits for 2011, 2012. This is probably more for like the multi-side. You can see that's changed as well. It's way up, and again, it's all pointing in the right direction. The unemployment rate, if we take a look at the unemployment rate, the red line is Houston, and the gray line is the U.S. average, and you can see the unemployment rate as of January of 2013. You can see that Houston is just a little bit below where the national average is. The national average right now is about 7.5, and Houston is about 6% for the unemployment rate today in Houston. So you can see it's running a little bit below the national average. Now, when we talk about the metropolitan statistic area, what you see on the screen here is you see a complete map of the state of Texas. Now, it's made up of what's called individual MSAs. You've heard me use that word already in this presentation. We're focusing in, of course, in the Houston market, which is right here. So that would be Zone 10, and that would encompass 10 counties in this area. So you can see when you look at the map is pretty much comprised of a number of different MSAs, which stands for Metropolitan Statistic Area. And again, we're going to focus in on the number 10 zone, and encompasses 10 counties. When we take a look at the makeup as far as the industry composition goes, where is all the economic activity being derived from? Let's just take a look at the top three. By industry composition, we see that the trade and transportation utilities makes up 21% of the industry composition. We can see down here at 15%, that's the professional and business services sector, and at 14% up here, you can see up here we've got, that's the government sector. So these are the main top three drivers for economic activity in the Houston area. Now, when we take a look at the employment by industry, you can see that mining and logging is a huge contributor to the economic activity, as is construction. When you look at these numbers here, you can see what their total output is from an employment perspective. And you can see that, of course, manufacturing is huge. Trade and transportation, as we talked about earlier, is massive. And then it kind of goes down the line from there. So you can see the total non-farm employment for the Houston MSA is just over 2.6 million. And you can see what that makeup is by industry sector. Now let's take a brief look at the home price index, again, for the Houston MSA. And the blue line, you can see that's going to be the Houston MSA area. Kind of the reddish type line there, that's Texas, and the green line is the USA. So from a home price index perspective, you can see where the US is, and you can actually see where Houston is in Texas, which is pretty much exactly the same. And you can see that from a home price index perspective, that it's performing better than the US as a whole. You can see it did drop down through the years of say, 08 to 2010, started to come out of it in 2011, like we talked about earlier. And we still got a ways to go, though, because our normalized trend line from a home price index perspective was probably going to run about 5% a year. And really what the home price index is, it talks about where your appreciation levels are year over year. And you can see that the normal is going to run right around that 5%, which is really close to what the industry average is. And you can see right now we've been running a little bit lower than that. But what does that tell us as real estate investors? There's a little clue here. It means we're going to see some upward pressure on price appreciation, which is a good thing. Now let's take a look at the National Home Pricing Index, and we'll look at the state of Texas in relation to the other states, just to kind of see how we fared over the last number of years. Now this brown line here, this is going to be Texas. The green line's Florida. This other line here, which I can't really tell the color of, is Texas, and the blue line is the USA. So California again Texas is the brown line, and California is this more dotted line through here. So when we go back to 2001 and we kind of look at a historical trend here, and that's really what we're looking for, is some trends, we can see that there's actually a pretty stable trend where the property values have been in the state of Texas. Did we see a little bit of a downturn here in the last little while? Sure, yeah, we have. But we also know that we're fairly stable. Now, when you look at the home price index for California, Florida, and all of the U.S., did we see some big spikes? Absolutely we did. And of course, that's because of the subprime mortgage. But then we saw some big troughs as well. And again, that's because of the downward pressure on prices because of the oversupplied market, specifically in the single-family home sector. But when you look at Texas, it was more steady. And the reason why that was because the consumers that were buying homes in Texas weren't big consumers of the subprime mortgage, because there was a lot of laws that limited them from being able to participate in that activity. And so because of that, it was more stable. As real estate investors, it's more of a stable approach. And if you're buying today, you're going to be getting in at the right timing cycle, because you're going to be buying in at the bottom end of the trough before you're going to see accelerated appreciation. No different than what we told you to do in Phoenix. And I think that quite a few people that have invested with us that saw that 30% appreciation last year were happy. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen in Houston, although the dynamics are different in Houston. You're going to see some stronger cash-on-cash returns, and you're going to see accelerated appreciation from its historical past as to where it's been, because prices need to increase in Houston. Now, the Investor USA Advantage, I think we've got something to offer, and I think that the people that have been participating with in the past, I think they've enjoyed what we've been doing, and we're real proud of our system, of our concept. But really what we're more proud of is our team that we put together to provide this opportunity for investors in North America. And so what we've done in Houston is really the same system that we had in Phoenix, and basically we just transposed it over to Houston. So it's the same thing we're going to be doing in Texas that we did in Arizona. So we're going to be doing full-on market analysis and research. We'll provide those on an ongoing basis. Full property selection. We've got fantastic renovators that are working with us. And of course, for our foreign investors, we're going to have that cross-border tax consultation. For our foreign investors, we have a lot of Canadian investors. We're going to still provide you some foreign national financing. A lot of our foreign investors are actually coming in with cash, and a lot of those investors are pulling that money from their HELOCs in their own houses. We've got a great property management team, great insurance structure, and of course foreign currency exchange and ongoing investor reporting. Now, for investors to participate, of course, the process is this. you're going to call our client care department and you're going to select a property. If you need financing, they're going to assist you to help you secure your financing. They're going to introduce you and walk you through the property management process and system. They're going to introduce you to some of our team members there. And then we're going to get you obviously a tenant that's going to be in your house. And the property management is going to maintain that property all the way through, and you'll be getting your cash flow checks from the net proceeds when they come in on a monthly basis. Now remember, as we go through this process, as you go through, and a lot of our investors, because our properties are selling so quickly, they'll buy them before they're tenant occupied. But remember, what our promises to you is a tenant in place and cash flow from day one. So because we're so confident in where we're buying our properties, usually we get a tenant in the properties within 28 days, that you'll still be cash flowing from day one in Houston with a tenant in place. The research and financially evaluate each property. So when we acquire our properties, it goes through the same filtration system. Sure, we're buying them through the trustee sales where you get the best properties for the best prices. That's where we're buying our properties. But of course, with those properties, we do a full-on sales comparable analysis. We do the full-on rental rate analysis. Of course, all of our titles are clean. All the lien searches are done. And of course, you're not having to deal with any postponements because we don't have to deal with those with our properties. And we do full on-site inspections for all of our properties. So they're all evaluated. There's due diligence. They're strategically located. They're strategically acquired. And they're great quality, what we call blue chip real estate investment properties. Now, the foreclosure auctions in Houston are a little bit different than they are in Phoenix. The fundamentals are a bit different. The people are a little bit different that we're dealing with. Not that they're bad people. I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just it's a different system. So what happens in, sorry about that, changing the screen there. So what happens in Houston is the auctions are held one day a month. So versus say in Phoenix or in Las Vegas, which are held daily, in Houston, they're held one day a month. It's the first Tuesday of every month. It's called Super Tuesday. And so what we do is we get our list that's provided to us from the various trustees, and we get that list usually by the 15th of the previous month, and we need to be ready to go by the 5th of the next month to buy the foreclosures on that day. So through that time period, of course, we evaluate our properties. We do the rent ready work analysis. We're doing our comps. We're doing our lien searches, our title searches. We're doing our rental verifications. And we're also working with our renovation contractors on the various costs and the things we need to do in the properties. And so the first Tuesday of every month, we're ready to go and bid on our properties. And so it's a little bit of a different process, as you can see, than we were doing in Phoenix. And there's about 25 different trustees in the various counties that we're participating in. So our bidders are all lined up, ready to go. And the other thing is that we need to pay cash on the spot. So you know how in Phoenix there was a $10,000 deposit, and the balance had to be paid within 24 hours. In Houston, on the spot, you need to give them a certified check for the property. So you can imagine what that's like when you have to take, $2 million to the auction with certified checks, but you don't know how much the exact price of the property is going to be. So we have lots of $50,000, $10,000, $5,000, $1,000 certified checks to provide the trustee to pay for the property on the spot, and then they give us our change back within 2 weeks. And it seems kind of strange to say when they give us our change back, because it can be in the thousands of dollars, but that's the nature of the beast. That's why it's not really conducive to the public to participate here, but that's also why we get the best deals for our investors. Our renovation remains the same. So from our renovation perspective, we're doing the same renovations that we were doing in Phoenix. We're going to be doing in Houston, and it all goes through a rent-ready set. So we have our full renovation contractors lined up. We create the timeline for the renovation work, confirm the trades are lined up, make sure their insurance coverage and workers' compensation is in place, and then, of course, do our inspections, do our final QC, and then provide the notice of completed work and pay them, and they're done. So it all goes through the same system. Stress-free property management. From a property management perspective, we have just a fantastic property manager, very experienced, very knowledgeable. They've got a lot of properties under management, and they can't wait to work with Investar USA clients. And we've got preferred rate for the monthly management fee. We've got a preferred rate for the new lease fee. They're throwing in a marketing fee for our Arizona or for our Investar USA clients, so they're not going to charge you the initial marketing fee. And so that's all because of our volume buying power that we have with the property management company. They've got a great track record. They've got a great system for communication. So they've got their online portal to communicate with our investors on a real-time basis. You get your monthly check, your monthly statements, and of course your annual income expense returns. And of course they take care of everything. So if anything comes up with the property, it goes through the property manager. The property manager deals with it. So it's really truly an armchair, hassle-free investment for you. So stress-free property management we have lined up again in the Houston market. Getting a great deal on Houston real estate. Not everything is a great deal. You know, when you look on the MLS and you're searching around for a property, which of course, quite frankly, most investors do that. They go to the MLS and they're going to pay retail. All the best properties will have been picked over at the trustee sale in most cases. But that's where the best opportunity is for our investors is to go through the trustee sales like we've been doing. And but there is some great opportunity for us in Houston. There's some great deals on some real estate. So let's take a look at a couple of properties that we've flowed through in the last 30 days. Here's one that we went through on Emptiness Drive in Cypress. Now Cypress, if you look at it on the map, Cypress you'll see is in the northern west part of the Houston area. Now this again is a blue chip property. It conforms to what we're looking for. It's a minimum of 3 beds, 2 bathrooms. Actually this one's 4 beds, 2 bath, 2-car front attached garage. This particular property was built in 2006, bungalow style house, fully renovated, 1,800 square feet. And this property was made available for $90,000. Now the rental income on this is $12,000, or the rental income will be $12,600, and you can see what your operating expenses are on this property. You're going to have your operating expenses for property taxes at $2,352, and you're going to have your homeowners association for the year at $800, and you're going to have your homeowners insurance at $800, your HOA fees at $350. And of course your reserves and your maintenance and repairs at $400. So your total operating expenses is $3,902, leaving you a net income of $8,068. And of course a quick calculation there to see what your annual ROI is. So take that your net operating income into your $90,000. You can see quickly you got a nice 9% cash on cash return. And this is probably a property that you're going to have about $10,000 walk-in equity at least on this property. Highly desirable area. Lease up time on this was about 15 days. Let's take a look at the next one in Brighton Bloom Lane in the Spring. Spring again is on the west side. Here's a property that's it's actually built in 2004. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car front attached garage. Again, it fits our blue chip mold. Fantastic area. This one's real close to a major transportation corridor. There's about 3 great schools that are right in the area, elementary, middle, and high school. Lots of shopping close by, and just a great family neighborhood. The investor price on this one was $119,000. Income is $15,600. Expenses is $3,902. The income on this one is $53,818, and the purchase price at $119,000. And you can see the return on this one is a little bit lower than where we typically would see it. And this one was at 5%. And this one actually was bought, renovated, and flipped to an American homeowner. And I think our investor made somewhere around $25,000. So just a fantastic property for somebody to get into and participate with some of our fix and flips that we've been doing in the past. We're going to be doing those in Houston as well. And again, just great properties, great areas, and we look forward to getting going. You know, Investar USA buys at auction once per month. All of our investors, we recommend if you do need financing, get pre-qualified for financing. Our client care department can help you with that. If you're a foreign investor, they can still help you with it. So we help a lot of Canadians get financing, actually in Canada, with our approved Canadian mortgage broker. And we're seeing that Canadians are liking to do that because they get a cheaper rate right in Canada than a foreign national rate of the U.S. We do have financing programs available if you'd like to use that leverage in the U.S. to buy our Houston properties. If you want to participate in the program, please call our client care department and get on the wait list for properties from $80,000 all the way up to $120,000. There is a wait list right now for Houston, just because there's been some pent-up excitement for that market. But the sooner you do it, the sooner you get on the list, the better off you are. And feel free to reach out to us at 1-855-456-3223, and that's extension 1. And remember, when you're purchasing, it's not an emotional buy. And so you got to really look at the numbers. Do the numbers make sense? The details are in the numbers. You got to be looking at them. We'll go through that with you for every property that you're looking at participating in. Now, of course, we're going to be doing Houston property tours. Same as we were doing in Phoenix. You're going to have an opportunity to kind of meet our Houston team, visit the properties. We'll have a great lunch, and hopefully you'll be able to secure a property. And while you're there, while you take the time, it's a little bit of a further flight than Phoenix for a lot of people. They're in North America, but go there, enjoy the sites, enjoy the restaurants, and get a feel for the market. And I know that for a lot of people, they like to go in and buy the property and leave. For Houston, actually take some time and explore some of the exciting things that Houston has to offer, because it's truly just a beautiful, beautiful city. And I think it'll be well worth your time doing that. And again, this is Investar USA, and we're proud to be coming to you from Houston now, and we look forward to working with everybody there. Feel free to, again, jump on our client care line at 1-855-456-3223, or email us at info@InvestarUSA, and talk to our client care department, and then ask them for our analysis report for the Houston market. And I think you'd be pleased with what they see and what you see and what they'll give you there. So again, feel free to reach out to us, and we look forward to you participating with us in the Houston market. From all of us at Arizona Investar and Investar USA, thank you all very much for joining us today. We had just a fantastic turnout. Thank you so much for coming on board. I apologize for being a little long-winded today, but it's a new product launch.